Mongolia categorically is one of those interesting countries in the modern world with a lot of attributes that make it stand aloof from a whole lot of other countries in its class. Mongolia is a huge country relative to Texas and twice its size. Talking of the US, it would span the entire southern historical part of the country beginning from Philadelphia in the east to Dallas westward. But why is 99.7% of Mongolia completely empty? Kindly stick around and allow us the privilege of touring you through the analysis. Before we proceed, kindly return the favor and give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification feature. Firstly, Mongolia can be found trapped in the middle of the Eurasian continent, being surrounded on all of its sides by hundreds of kilometers of land, depriving it of any direct contact with the nearby ocean, hence giving it the reputation of being the largest landlocked country in the world without direct access to an internal sea. Theoretically speaking, Kazakhstan is larger than Mongolia and falls under the landlocked category, but Kazakhstan differs from Mongolia in that it enjoys the privileges of the nearly 1,900-km-long coastline with a bonus of the internal Caspian Sea, granting it access to maritime trade with countries like Iran, Russia, Turkmenistan, and Azerbaijan. Conversely, Mongolia possesses no such direct access to any large water bodies, and due to that coupled with other logical environmental factors, Mongolia has earned the title of the emptiest country on planet Earth. Diagnosing the issue of its topography, Mongolia has more than 1.5 million square kilometers of land, occupying the 18th position on the list of the largest countries in the world, but shockingly has a very tiny population of about 3.3 million inhabitants living across all of that vast land. As a result, its population density is just about 2.1 people per square kilometer of land, which presently is by far the lowest of any sovereign country in the world. Statistically, the population density of Mongolia, when compared to Australia and Namibia, which are the countries with the second and third lowest population densities respectively, is roughly lower than them. It is worthy of note that both of these countries are vastly covered with large amounts of uninhabitable deserts, but Mongolia outpaces them both in emptiness. Austria happens to have multiple large population centers with 5 cities scattered around the country that have more than 1 million residents per piece, showing that the population distribution of Australia is by far more evenly distributed than that of Mongolia, with just one habitable city-state with a large mass of empty land. Mongolia is the world's 18th biggest country, hosting its capital in its biggest city, Ulaanbaatar, and is home to about 1.6 million people. Ulaanbaatar is the core of the modern Mongolian state, and its population puts it on the same level as Barcelona and Spain, with parities in population number. This big city exists within Mongolia means that Ulaanbaatar alone is home to roughly 48% of the entire Mongolian population, making it one of the most highly centralized countries in the entire world. And the capital itself occupied 0.3% of Mongolia's land, estimate of 48% of the population as 1.6 million people living on just 0.3% of the land is not far-fetched, while the other 52% of the population are 1.7 million people living across the remaining 99.7% of the land, depicting Ulaanbaatar's massive concentrated population size outweighs the average population density across the whole country. Considering the exclusion of the city's land from the math means the remaining 99.7% of the Mongolian surface area contains an average population density of just 1.1 people per square kilometer, which is about thrice emptier than Australia and Namibia. Considering Australia and Namibia on average, to put it further into perspective, 99.7% of Mongolian land is nearly half as densely populated with people as the far northern region of Finland called Lapland, spanning well above the Arctic Circle, and is the largest densely populated part of the European Union. It is interestingly across this vast empty down of Mongolia where roughly 1/3 of the population continues to this day in the 21st century, living a nomadic herding lifestyle that matches the familiar war of Genghis Khan about 800 years ago. So how did the development and persistence of Mongolia continue into the 21st century? And what about this country accounts for its reputation as the emptiest in the entire world? An in-depth to this question cannot be explained without first understanding some key facts about Mongolia's geography and climate. Mongolia's territory extends across most of the high Mongolian Plateau, a highly elevated region across the central part of Asia, hemmed in on all of its sides by even higher mountain ranges. The elevation across the Mongolian Plateau ranges from 1,000 to 1,500 meters above sea level, and Mongolia's borders within the high plateau are placed nearly 800 kilometers away from the nearest oceanic body of water, the Yellow Sea, and due to its highly elevated plateau and distance away from the Indo-Pacific deep within the Eurasian continental interior, monsoon winds that bring rainfall from the Pacific rarely, if ever, can carry all of their moisture into the Mongolian Plateau. And then to the north, the Mongolian Plateau also sits immediately beneath the Siberia, which dramatically dramatically influences its climate and ability to contain people beginning around every August as the days in northern Asia gradually begin growing shorter and shorter as winter approaches, subsequently causing the air, which is cold and dry, blowing into Siberia, the frozen Arctic Ocean, to getting even colder as it collects over Siberia than over the Arctic Ocean, because the air of the Arctic generally forms over the iced sea, which radiates heat better than the cold tundra environment of Siberia does from September to April, and annually, this cold and dry Siberian air collects with high atmospheric pressure and gets transferred across northern Eurasia and particularly gets pushed into the Mongolian plateau, meaning that winters in Mongolia are nearly always very cold and very dry. This cold, dry, and shallow air from Siberia plunges into the lower elevated river valleys and basins of the Mongolian plateau and lingers across the north of Mongolia, which averagely gets less severe, and further south in the country. The median temperature across the country in January is minus 30 degrees Celsius, obscures the reality that freaks cold snaps and blizzards can rapidly and unexpectedly happen pretty much anywhere in Mongolia during the long winter season, as temperatures can quickly transition the order of 30 degrees Celsius in just a matter of 24 hours. Temperatures of minus 40 degrees Celsius are common across the north of the country during the winter. At such times, all Mongolian rivers and lakes will freeze over during these aggressive winters due to this phenomenon, and many of the lesser rivers will freeze solid right down to the bottom, making Mongolian rivers and lakes slightly useful for transportation and irrigation throughout most of the year. Ulaanbaatar, the capital of the largest city, is only free of frost for about 3.5 months of the year. That is between mid-May and the end of August, and the city's average annual temperature is just minus 29 degrees Celsius or about 26 degrees Fahrenheit, making it the coldest capital city on the planet. The climatic plot twist can go to its extremes throughout the summer in Mongolia to unfathomable heights of up to 38 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit southwards of the country, and even 33 degrees Celsius or 91 degrees Fahrenheit in the capital. There is a notorious precipitating disparity as rainfall is relatively minute, as the highly elevated Mongolian plateau is surrounded by higher mountains that hinder incoming rainfall from every direction to the south, and towering Himalayas and the Kunlunshan Mountains block rain coming in from that direction to the west. The already high mountains in addition to the Mongol Tai and Vobi Altai sub-ranges further raid the south. Moisture-rich winds blowing in from these directions pass over these mountains first and deposit their moisture as snowfall on the sides of those mountains, facing away from Mongolia. Also, the winds are mostly dry by the time they blow over the Mongolian plateau, including the whole winter between September and April. The dry, cold, and high-pressure air that blows into and resides over the Mongolian plateau from Siberia eliminates any traits of low-pressure, moist, and potentially rainy air, keeping the skies clear and the clouds free throughout the whole season, accounting for why Mongolia is one of the sunniest countries on the world and average around 257 highly sunny and cloud-free days a year. What is your take on this? Is Mongolia really the emptiest? Let us know in the comment section. That's where we wrap things up for today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification feature. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.